There exists a quiet and ancient law that moves beneath every polite exchange, beneath every measured smile, beneath every handshake that feels slightly colder than the skin suggests. It is the law that wherever light appears, shadow grows more defined. You have felt it, though perhaps you never named it. You walk into a room, not seeking attention, not trying to dominate the air, simply carrying that calm awareness that belongs to those who feel deeply, and suddenly, something subtle happens. The energy shifts. Some faces soften, drawn to you as if to a small fire on a winter night. Others, however, tighten only slightly, yet unmistakably. They smile, but the smile does not reach the eyes. Their words remain courteous, yet their presence contracts, as if your very being had pressed against a wall they thought invisible. Why does the soul that listens, that heals, that perceives without defense, so often awaken unease in others? Why is it that the heart which feels most sincerely is the one misunderstood, envied, or quietly opposed? Carl Jung would say it is not a matter of social chemistry, but of the psyche protecting itself from a mirror. Every human being carries what Jung called the shadow, the rejected side of the personality, the traits and emotions buried so that the conscious self may appear acceptable. When such a person meets someone whose empathy shines clearly, they meet more than another human being. They meet the reflection of their own unacknowledged depths. Your openness exposes what they have hidden. Your sincerity unmasks their pretenses. Light does not accuse, yet it reveals. And what is revealed can hurt. So they begin to disguise the discomfort. They call you too sensitive, too serious, too emotional, too idealistic, phrases that sound harmless but carry the weight of rejection. In truth, they are not describing you at all. They are describing the pieces of themselves they cannot face. You have become a mirror, and not everyone welcomes their own reflection. Resentment, in such moments, is not hatred, it is pain turned outward. It is the psyche's instinctive attempt to destroy the mirror, rather than confront the image within it. That is why empaths so often attract both admiration and resistance in the same breath. Your light touches the wounds of others, not out of malice but by its nature. To be luminous is to awaken the sleeping shadows around you. And yet, this is not a curse. It is a calling to awareness. If you have felt that quiet tension, the friendliness mixed with unease, the compliment that stings, the distance that follows your kindness, remember this. It is not about what you have done. It is about what you represent. You are proof that authenticity still exists, that gentleness need not mean weakness, that truth can breathe quietly and still move the air. The work ahead is not to hide your radiance, but to understand it. Light without consciousness burns itself out. Light with understanding becomes warmth. And so, the journey begins with the recognition that the resentment you meet is not proof of your failure, but evidence that your presence has begun to stir the unconscious. Carl Jung offered us a map of the human soul that is both simple and devastatingly honest. He said that every individual contains light and darkness, and the goal of life is not to chase one or destroy the other, but to bring them into awareness, to integrate them. The moment you deny your darkness, it begins to rule you from beneath. The moment you repress your emotions, they seek expression through projection. Projection is one of the most fascinating and dangerous mechanisms of the psyche. What we refuse to recognize within ourselves, we will inevitably see in others. The traits we dislike most in people are often the very ones we have not yet accepted in our own hearts. In this way, our relationships become mirrors of our unconscious. Every encounter is an invitation to self-knowledge, though most people mistake it for conflict. When an empath enters this dynamic, they become an unwitting catalyst. Their openness, their sensitivity, their refusal to hide from pain, all these qualities confront others with what they have buried. You, the empath, embody the very feelings that others have disowned. You show them the tenderness they once lost, the vulnerability they once called weakness, the capacity to feel that they once decided was too dangerous. And so, they're unconscious rebels. They project their shadow upon you. They see you as fragile, as naive, as exhausting, as impossible to satisfy. In truth, they are describing their own disconnection from emotional depth. You become, in their mind, the external stage upon which their inner conflicts are played out. This is why Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The empath's presence always creates reaction because it invites transformation. Yet transformation is not comfortable. The person who is not ready to face their shadow experiences your authenticity as a silent accusation. You do not tell them that they are dishonest, but your sincerity reminds them of the masks they wear. You do not shame them for their numbness, but your ability to feel exposes how much they have forgotten how to feel. In the language of the psyche, your light whispers to their darkness, "There is more to you than this," and their darkness, terrified of extinction, fights back. Jung believed that the self, the totality of all that we are, both conscious and unconscious, longs for wholeness. Empathy, when genuine, is not simply a social skill. It is the self reaching outward. When you listen deeply, you are not merely hearing words. You are allowing the collective unconscious to move through you. That is why people sense something sacred around true empaths. They cannot name it, but they feel it, as if standing before a quiet flame that warms and reveals at once. Yet where there is light, the shadow sharpens. Every TMA, your presence awakens beauty. It also awakens resistance. The same heart that is drawn to you for comfort may also turn away in envy. The same soul that longs to heal may first try to harm. This is not because people are cruel, but because the unconscious defends itself from change with everything it has. You must understand this. The resentment you face is not personal. It is psychological. It is the self's refusal to awaken too quickly. You are not the cause of the storm. You are the weather vane that shows where the wind is turning. Therefore, the task is not to diam yourself to avoid reaction, but to stay conscious of what is happening. When someone's energy tightens around you, do not shrink. Observe, ask yourself quietly, what in me has touched what in them? This question shifts you from confusion to awareness, from victim to witness. It keeps your empathy from becoming self-destruction. To see through projection without absorbing it, that is the art of consciousness. And it is this art that separates the empath who suffers endlessly from the empath who evolves. Many empaths carry within them the archetype of the wounded healer. Their capacity to feel deeply did not arrive by chance, nor was it gifted by a life free of suffering. It was forged in the crucible of personal pain, honed by experiences that left invisible scars, shaped by trials that demanded resilience and grace. Their light is born from journeying through darkness, learning to see clearly in the absence of comfort, and returning whole enough to illuminate the path for others. Yet archetypes have a dual nature. To some, the empath's radiance feels like salvation. Others sense a subtle threat. The person who has not faced their own shadow, who has avoided their own vulnerability, feels drawn to the empath, as if to a warm flame on a cold night. They approach with curiosity, longing, and sometimes admiration. They instinctively recognize in the empath a knowledge of what they themselves have lost, the ability to feel, to connect, to be seen. Yet this same recognition awakens fear, shame, and envy. They are magnetically attracted, but simultaneously repelled. This is the double bind. The empath is desired and resented at the same time. Their generosity, patience, and capacity for understanding are what draw others near. But those very qualities provoke hidden hostility, because the empath's presence forces the other to confront their own unclaimed emotions. The more open the empath is, the more sharply the unready soul feels its absence. The empath is not creating this resistance. It arises naturally from the dynamics of the psyche. Many empaths unconsciously compound this tension. They carry a belief, often rooted in early conditioning, that love is earned through sacrifice. They have been praised for caring, criticized for feeling too much, and taught explicitly or implicitly that their value lies in how much they give to others. Over time, this pattern becomes magnetic. They attract those who wish to offload their own burdens, to be soothed without facing the work required to heal themselves. In this way, empaths become vessels for other people's projections, absorbing shadows not their own. At first, the empath may not recognize this dynamic. They may internalize the subtle criticisms, begin to shrink their light, or apologize for the very traits that define them. They may feel exhausted, drained, or inadequate. But the reality is that the resentment they encounter is not a reflection of personal failing. It is a mirror of the unprocessed shadow of those around them. Their light has simply revealed what others are not yet ready to see. The solution is not withdrawal, but conscious discernment. Empaths must learn to differentiate between their own emotional response and the projections of others. They must cultivate boundaries not as walls to isolate themselves, but as protective edges to preserve energy and clarity. They must recognize that giving does not require erasing the self, that compassion does not require self-negation. A useful metaphor is a garden. The empath is like a garden full of fragrant, nourishing flowers. Some people visit to appreciate the beauty, some to take what they need, and some out of envy, trampling what they cannot grow themselves. The garden does not choose who enters, but it can be tended wisely. Boundaries, self-respect, and selective openness allow the garden to flourish. Those who seek to harm or dim the light are not punished. They simply cannot access the inner sanctuary without alignment to its rhythms. In mastering this balance, the empath moves from wounded healer to sage. The sage does not fear resentment because they recognize it as a sign of the other's inner struggle, not a verdict on their worth. They remain present, generous, and luminous, while holding their own center strong. The double bind loses its power when awareness, boundaries, and self-knowledge are cultivated. To evolve from a wounded healer into a sage, the empath must learn the subtle art of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls designed to isolate, nor are they shields to keep the world out. They are the natural edges of the soul, the borders that define where one ends and another begins. When cultivated with awareness, boundaries allow the empath to shine without being consumed, to give without losing themselves, to hold space without carrying the shadows of everyone around them. First, boundaries require conscious recognition of projection. When subtle irritation, veiled criticism, or inexplicable tension arises in others, the empath must pause and ask, is this mine to carry, or is it projection from another's unresolved shadow? Naming the projection silently, without blame, allows the empath to witness it without internalizing it. Awareness transforms what might feel like a personal attack into a neutral observation. Second, boundaries involve clarity in response. The empath must distinguish between caring and rescuing. True empathy does not insist on solving another's pain. It does not bend over backward to make the discomfort go away. It is the practice of presence, holding space, offering attention, listening deeply, without assuming ownership of another's suffering. Saying, I can support you while you carry this is different from, I must carry this for you to be whole. The former honors both parties. The latter erases the self. Third, boundaries demand discernment in intimacy. Not every heart deserves full access. Empaths must learn to cultivate selective generosity. Those who respect the light may enter the garden freely. Those who wish to dim it or drain it are met with gentle, firm edges. This is not cruelty. It is an acknowledgement of the sacredness of one's own energy. To honor oneself is to honor the gift that one offers. Boundaries also function as alchemy. The empath, by holding firm edges, converts the raw energy of others, fear, envy, resentment into understanding and self-knowledge rather than absorption and depletion. Just as the alchemist transforms base metals into gold, the empath's attentive presence transforms unconscious reactions into awareness and growth. The light no longer attracts destruction. It becomes a lens through which others can encounter their own darkness safely, provided they are ready. Importantly, boundaries are not static. They are dynamic, evolving with self-awareness and life experience. At times, they expand to allow connection. At other times, they contract to preserve the integrity of the empath's center. This dynamic balance is the essence of mature empathy, to give fully, to feel deeply, yet to remain anchored in the self. Finally, boundaries cultivate humility. The sage empath shines without arrogance. They are aware of their gift, yet they do not wield it as a weapon or a shield. The presence of resentment is not taken personally, nor is admiration coveted. Both are understood as reflections of another's inner state. The empath who masters boundaries navigates the interplay of light and shadow with grace, holding the torch high while keeping their feet planted firmly in their own ground. Through these practices, the empath transforms from one who suffers under the weight of others' shadows into one who witnesses, guides, and illuminates without losing themselves. The journey is not easy. The tension between light and shadow, giving and protecting, intimacy and discernment is constant. Yet it is also the path of individuation, the true development of the self. The empath learns that the torch they carry is not only for others, but first and foremost, for their own illumination. To walk as an empath is to walk on a narrow path between illumination and vulnerability, between presence and exhaustion, between connection and solitude. Your light is not a tool to impress or control. It is the natural radiance of a soul that has endured, observed, and integrated its own darkness. To hold this light in the world is both a privilege and a responsibility. It requires courage, patience, and a clarity of purpose. First, you must understand that resentment and admiration are not verdicts on your worth. They are signals, indicators of the dynamics your presence awakens in others. When someone reacts with envy, subtle hostility, or discomfort, it is rarely about you. It is about the unacknowledged, unhealed aspects of themselves that your authenticity has revealed. Their reaction is a mirror, not a judgment. Recognizing this protects you from internalizing negativity and from shrinking in the face of resistance. Second, the empath must cultivate energetic integrity. Your ability to feel deeply, to notice the currents of emotion others do not see, is a gift, but without conscious boundaries, it becomes a liability. You are not responsible for the shadows others cast, nor are you required to make everyone comfortable. The role of the empath is to witness, to reflect, and to guide where appropriate, not to absorb the unprocessed pain of those around them. Protecting your center allows your light to continue burning brightly, without extinguishing or flickering under pressure. Third, walking with the torch involves discerning engagement. Not all who approach seek growth. Some seek dependence, some seek validation, some seek to dim what they cannot bear. You may encounter these individuals repeatedly: family, colleagues, friends, even partners. The empath who holds their light understands the difference between healthy engagement and toxic projection. They offer presence, warmth, and guidance to those ready to receive it, and maintain respectful distance from those who cannot. This is neither selfish nor harsh. It is necessary self-preservation and an expression of integrity. Fourth, the empath must also turn inward. While outward empathy can nourish and heal, it is your inner life, the quiet moments, the reflections, the honest acknowledgement of your own needs that sustains the flame. Self-care is not indulgence. It is the practice of replenishment, of maintaining your own radiance so it can continue to touch the world. Just as the lantern illuminates the forest when it is fueled and steady, your light remains effective only when nurtured from within. Finally, to walk as an empath is to embrace the paradox of influence. You will inspire, awaken, and comfort, but you will also encounter misunderstanding, envy, and resistance. Both are natural consequences of the psychic alchemy at play. The world needs your authenticity precisely because it challenges complacency and denial. Your light is a catalyst, a living demonstration that wholeness and emotional depth are possible. Those who resist are learning in their own TMA. Those who receive are awakened by your example. Neither reaction is a measure of your failure or success. Your role is simply to continue walking, torch held high, aware, grounded, compassionate, and unwavering. This is the path of the mature empath, the sage who knows that true power is not in control, but in presence, not in pleasing others, but in honoring oneself, not in avoiding shadow, but in witnessing it without losing the flame. The empath's journey is not a duty to the world, but a craft, a practice of light in the face of darkness, of consciousness in the presence of projection, of wholeness amid fragmentation. To shine fully, to love fully, and to stand in your truth is to embody the deepest work of the psyche, individuation. This is your calling. Walk it courageously, guard your light wisely, let it illuminate without being extinguished, and know that by doing so, you become a living bridge between shadow and radiance, for yourself and for the world.